Well, greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is still doing well, and welcome to today's bonus upload. Before we jump into it, a couple links. As many of you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, channel membership, and the merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Links to Patreon, PayPal, and channel membership is in the description below. Merch displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support the channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It does not cost a cent. Click the like button. It takes half a second. If you don't want to miss out on any of the informative uploads I put out daily, click that bell icon, and folks, please leave a comment. Why? Well, because all of these things really do help the channel to continue to grow and go. And yes, folks, they definitely do matter. Now, everyone, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's jump in to today's bonus, shall we? I'm going to discuss something that I've discussed numerous times on this channel, these creatures called crawlers. Now, a subscriber had mentioned something in the comments about them possibly being involved with these missing person cases. And I've said it. Actually, I said it when I was up at the last time at Tom Mezik's location of his disappearance. And so did Steph and I when we were talking numerous times. He calls them pull-offs. Now, prior to the name crawler, there used to be a term used called look-behinds. And that was because you would see them behind a tree. You would see either their head or their hands or whatever. Now, there's been numerous sightings of these creatures and very, I guess, seldom reported cases of them attacking. Well, maybe the reason why there are so seldom cases of them attacking is because they are the ones that are making the people disappear. Maybe the people they attack don't have a chance to share their experiences. Just a thought. Now, the more I think about it, the more it would make sense for something like that to be capable of taking out Tom Mezik. I don't know. They have been seen in trees. They're cave-dwelling things. That movie, Chud, cannibalistic humanoid underground dweller, back in the 80s. Soft disclosure, possibly? Seems right to me. If you think about the case of Tom Mezik, he had his rifle, a walkie, his black and red checkered cap, probably a backpack, and nothing has been found. Maybe one of these creatures took him below the ground or in a rock cavern. I don't know. But, like I said last night, I'm going to be changing the channel's name to actually fit what we do here and address the reason why I named the channel what I did. So let's get into some of these look behind crawler encounters. Tonight's first experience. This happened back in March, but some other crazy stuff has been happening with animals, such as possible coyotes and cougars. So in March, my friend and I decided to have a fire. Since we're in Maryland, it's still really cold around that time. We invited 2 other friends to come over and join us. Side note, we normally have a stock of chicken livers to feed the fox around here, and we put them outside my friend's window to watch the fox eat them. So while we were talking around the fire and drinking some brews, I had a grand idea of taking the rest of the chicken liver and putting them behind the detached garage in the woods. There's a game camera, so the plan was to put the livers in front of it to see whatever animal was lurking deeper in the woods. So I grabbed the liver, I grabbed my friend, and we go down the 250 to 300 foot driveway. It's about 11 p.m., so we have our phone flashlights on. We get down behind the garage, and I heard walking in the woods. I told my friend to shut up and listen. He said he didn't hear anything. We take a few more steps, and he finally hears it. We stop again and listen, and there's nothing. We're about 10 to 15 feet from the tree line, and I take one step, see movement off to my right slightly, and shine my phone light over there. There's a white face looking at us from behind a fallen tree. But I don't pay much attention to it because I was drinking. Then it starts running back and forth in front of us, right within the tree line. It's so fast and the movement seemed so odd, but yet graceful for its height and speed. We're panicking, trying to get our lights on, and after about 10 seconds of this, both of our lights hit it, and it stops dead in its tracks. It was somewhere from 6 to 7 feet tall, super skinny. I could see its tendons and its arms and legs, super long arms that came past its knees. Obviously long legs as well. It was running on 2 feet, and it stopped in a weird position, not facing us, yet its head was turned toward us. It didn't really have any facial features, nothing in its eye sockets that I could see. Our phone lights reflected off its pale skin. It seemed like we'd sat there staring at each other for minutes. I eventually screamed and ran so fast and left my friend behind. He eventually followed suit and was running behind me. Of course, when I was running, I tripped and fell. But I just sat there listening, and I didn't hear anything, so I thought we were in the clear. My friend did say he thought he heard it running beside us in the woods while we were running back up the driveway. I had no idea what it was and felt absolutely crazy until my friend kept reassuring me he saw it as well. Throughout the night, we kept hearing walking in the woods, and we got very nervous. Nothing crazy happened in the woods since. Until a couple nights ago, my friend and I decided to have another fire since, well, summer's in the air. And it was just the 2 of us this time. We heard a weird animal that was later established as a screech owl near the bamboo in the front of the woods. We also heard what sounded like a dog being beaten or attacked from the neighbors across the street's property. They don't have any dogs. Then finally, around 1 a.m., the fire was starting to die down. Across the street again, we heard this terrifying screeching noise. I can only describe it as tires squealing and then a human yelling at the same time. We immediately put the fire out and went inside through the side door. As we were opening the screen door, something was running up the side of the house towards us very fast. I wish I had had the courage to peek my head around the corner. We had the window cracked that night listening for noises, and we kept hearing weird screeching noises throughout the night. Tonight's second encounter. This experience happened during my teenage years, probably 15 or 16 years old. I lived in a small town of 2,000 people, mainly surrounded by boreal forest. In a region of Quebec, Canada. Now, this place was great, as we often saw deer and other wildlife. It was usually a quiet and safe place. To put a bit of context, my house was located at the side of a dead end, and only had a light source at night was my house. There was a single street light at the end of the road, but it only lit up part of the street and the forest behind it. Now, we were dog people. I only had small dogs while living there. Every day we needed to let them out to pee, as all dogs do, but at night they were almost impossible to see because of the darkness. Our terrain was kind of big and the light source was weak. I was a gamer at that time and often stayed up late. So I was the one who needed to take them out to go to the bathroom at 2 a.m. because it stayed with me while I was playing. One night, I opened the door and waited for my dog to do his thing while trying to look at it. I was only able to see the reflection of the light in his eyes when he looked at me. I started to look around because sometimes the deer were sleeping in the woods under the streetlight or wild turkey roaming around when a little dark spot caught my attention. It looked like a human head coming out of the brush, but I wasn't able to see it because it was a bit dark. I didn't want my dog to run after whatever it was. My dog had the tendency to run away after wild animals, so I called him. He, of course, didn't listen to me, but the thing in the brush started to crawl toward the street slowly. It looked like a human, with thin limbs but a normal body and a slightly long neck. I started to freak out a bit and shook the treat cup so my dog would hurry up. He came running inside and I shut the door as fast as I could. I shut the lights off in the house so I could have a view of what was outside. The strange creature crawled fast, almost running like a dog, with every limb broken. As an improvised crawling movement, the animal passed under the light, where I saw it had no fur. Like a shaved animal, it was disgusting. I was afraid and standing in the dark. The animal ran toward the light and continued on the street, where I wasn't able to see it because the houses in my neighborhood were surrounded by trees. I locked the door and went to sleep with my dog. I didn't tell anybody about it. A couple of months later, I went to bed kind of early, maybe 11 p.m., and was watching some videos on my phone. They were gaming videos. I had my headphones on. The sound on the video was reoccurring, and I thought it was very annoying, like a distant, weird scream. After a couple of minutes, the video finished, and I went to watch another. But during the loading, the sound occurred again. I took my headphones off and waited for the sound. I heard it and immediately had tears in my eyes. It was coming from my window. My room is on the second floor, so I looked down into the forest to see if there was any movement. The only light near the forest entrance was the moonlight and an underwater light in our pool that emitted a small halo around it. I wasn't able to see anything, but the sound occurred again. It was a mix between a distorted scream and a pig having its throat cut, or a strong pain whining from a dog. I looked down and saw an animal that passed so fast it was really hard to see. But I barely saw a human-sized animal with thin limbs crawling like a spider. It wasn't running after anything. The sound occurred another time. It was the most horrible thing I had ever heard. I closed my window to choke a bit of the sound out. I heard it again 3 other times, and it stopped after that. I talked to my dad about the sound, and he told me it was probably a deer being attacked by a wild animal. I was really scared of it. I barely walked in the woods at night, the 3 following years, before moving to the city to go to university. To this day, I have never heard an animal like it, and it really made me question my mental health at the time, because I had PTSD from a dog attack in middle school. I had sometimes light hallucinations when I gamed for too long, like black shadows that disappear immediately, or things like that. There were barely any reports of wolves, coyotes, or bear in my area, and believe me, I made a lot of discoveries exploring the forest in this town. Tonight's third experience. So, my first encounter is actually an old friend of mine's, who I hadn't seen or spoken to in some years, but I still remember this very vividly to this day. It was 1996, and I had just turned 22. I was at a party with a few friends, and the host of the party was the daughter of some wealthy family. She was a bit of a spoiled brat from what I remember, and her parents had this really amazing house, which I remember having this pretty awesome chandelier at the entrance and one of the highest ceilings I had ever seen. Anyway, the house was in solitude and was the only house around for some distance. To get to it, you had to drive a minute or two along this really long road that was not lit up at all. The house was surrounded by a lot of forests, but had a small lake nearby. Now the party had been going on for a good few hours, and a buddy of mine was showing up pretty late because of work or something. I have no idea why, because it was years ago, but I know he showed up fairly late. I remember being in the kitchen talking to someone, and he comes bursting into the room, fully out of breath, and immediately comes to me and interrupts my conversation. He was extremely hysterical, and I remember telling him to calm down and breathe. He then began to say that his dad dropped him off on the start of where the longest road began, as his dad was in a hurry. I remember thinking why the hell his dad would let him walk across a dark forest road to a secluded house at night on his own was sensible, but hey, who am I to judge someone else's family? My friend was saying he was walking up the road about halfway, drinking his cans, when he heard a sort of growl behind him. Thinking he was about to get attacked by a wolf or whatever, he began to walk much faster. And it wasn't until he turned around, and about 10 feet from him, at the tree, was this hunched-over creature. I remember him constantly calling it this tall white thing. He said it had a huge head and gaping mouth. He let out a scream and then ran as quick as he could to the house. He made it to the house and busted in without looking back, which he then immediately found me. Now at the time, and for years after, I personally just thought he saw an animal and his imagination went wild. I think people for years would just go, yeah, dude, whatever, when he would bring it up. But he never let anyone get to his head, and he was always defensive over what he saw. Well, there you have it, folks. Today's bonus. I hope you all enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you. I'd like to really thank you all for supporting the channel. It is, after all, your support that keeps this channel growing and going, and what gives people a chance and a place to share their experiences and theories judgment-free, simply treated with the respect that we all deserve. Thank you. Everyone stay safe, happy, healthy, and ever vigilant, keeping an eye on our children, our pets, family, and friends. These creatures are real, they are out there and dangerous. Share this information with the people you love and care about, and it may just help save their lives someday. Till next time, never stop asking questions, never stop searching for the truth, and God bless.